you don't know what you don't know. Whether it's pregnant women or anyone in life, it's, yeah, I'm fine. It is what it is. And they don't really realize that this tension that's going on in your body could be actually slowing them down in other ways.
And so I always say we're basically going from like a studio apartment to like a 1-bedroom apartment for the baby, giving them more space, taking pressure off of the mom so that everyone's more comfortable and get in the best position possible. So that's the goal.
What would you say to a woman that is early on in the pregnancy and wants to keep her body ready throughout this entire process and to make it as seamless as possible?
The sooner you come in before things are going wrong, the easier it is. My goal is to help women avoid any unnecessary struggles or difficulties or discomfort during their pregnancy journey. That's just where my heart is, and I just want to help as many moms as possible.
Welcome to the HealthFit Huddle, where we keep you mobile and active, away from painkillers and surgery, so you can get back to the activities that you love. Today, I have a very, very special guest. This is Dr. Kelli Kakita Han. She is a doctor of chiropractic, certified in applied kinesiology, certified in the Webster Technique, which is for prenatal chiropractic, and she's a mother to 2 amazing children. And her least favorite achievement is marrying me and being on camera. So
That's my least favorite thing.
welcome to the podcast. So let's get started. You like to stay behind the scenes, and I want to give our clients and our audience a little bit of a background on who you are and where you came from. So pretend like we're on our first date. Where did you grow up?
Most of the talking then too.
Yeah, it's
You know,
just normal.
going.
Tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about your family.
I grew up in Temple City. I went to Temple City Unified Schools from kindergarten through high school. I grew up playing basketball, did a little bit of soccer, a little bit of volleyball. As a Girl Scout, went to church.
So tell me so basketball was a big part of your life. Tell me how you got started.
My Girl Scout troop formed a team. I think we were 7, and we played together up until about junior high, and then the team kind of fell apart. Some girls were just playing because their parents wanted them to, and some of us really loved it. So then I bounced around to other teams through high school.
So competitively, like, were you a good player?
I was all right.
She's being modest. She's a very, very good player. Tell me about your achievements in high school basketball.
So high school was a little bit, I guess, not tough, but I was coming back from an ACL repair when I tore my ACL in 8th grade, rehabbed, and was able to come back just in time for tryouts for high school. I was able to make varsity, played with my older sister that year, worked my way up from being the rookie. I was the only freshman on the team that year, and then by the end of the season, I was 6th man. So that was cool. I think by senior year, I was co-captain, and I made, what is it called? CIF team?
Yeah, first team.
Not first team, but I mean first team, but I made that, whatever that list is called.
So go back to a few years, 8th grade. How did you tear your ACL?
I was playing in, not a club league, but it's a Japanese league outside of school. And I think it was my shoe. Back then, my parents only bought me 1 pair of shoes for the year, and at that point, the sole was kinda coming off, and I played. I think one of my teammates stole the ball. I was running down for a fast break. They threw it, and so I had to leap in the air and try to catch it, and when I landed, I just remember my foot went one way, and the rest of me went the other way, and I couldn't get up.
Do you remember the fear or the pain, like, when that happened?
The only thing I remember was initially my coach asking me if I could move it, and I couldn't actively move it on my own, but I was like, "Can you just bend it? Can you bend it for me?" Just so I knew that it worked. That's all I remember, and then I remember sitting out, and then I was young and naive, so I thought I was gonna be fine, and then I went to stand up, and my knee kinda buckled under me. And then I went to ER, and from there, it was, like, doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment, and then I had to have surgery.
What was the rehab process like for you?
So we had Kaiser, which isn't the best.
Mm.
So I had surgery, and I think I was I wanna say 6 months post-op, and I was still at, like, 30 degrees of flexion. I should have been out of the brace by then, but I was still in the locked brace just because with PT there at the time, at least, you didn't have a dedicated therapist. You kinda went, and whoever was available saw you. So a lot of the times you weren't progressed, you just kinda did the same thing over and over again. No one was really watching. Um, and then I think around 6 months, there was a new grad that came on. And then so he was still passionate about what he was doing or still cared. So he worked with me every time I came in, which was, I think, 3 times a week. I don't know how my mom did it, but she drove me out from Temple City to Kaiser Sunset 3 times a week for PT. Um, and at the end of 3 months with him, I was stronger than I was pre-injury, and I was able to try out
Great.
for the team.
So you get through this ACL. Is a tough rehab, at least the first 6 months, because typically, like here at our office, our range of motion is key, early on in the rehab process, especially for an ACL, extension, getting it flat is number 1, so you can stand up straight, but the flexion piece of getting to at least 45 to 90 to 120, um, should come sooner than later, and that way your muscles can fire a little bit better, you have less inflammation. So, you get back and you do well in high school. At this point in time, do you know you wanna go into the medical field?
Yeah. So I think it was when that PT came on and helped me recover, and I saw the difference between a good therapist and a bad therapist. That was when I decided I wanted to become a PT. So I went through high school and undergrad, and that was the plan until it was someone I had known for the last maybe 8 years, 6 years, and they asked me if I knew what chiropractic was, and I didn't. And so they kinda educated me on that, and that's when I shifted paths.
Mhm. What was the what was it about the chiropractic profession that made you're like, "Ooh, maybe I wanna try this instead?"
Well, the way that he explained it was that I could do a lot of the same things that I would as a PT. The difference was I wouldn't be underneath the medical umbrella, and I wouldn't need doctor referrals to see patients. I'd have direct access, and to me, that was very alluring.
Yeah, for sure. So you started off with more general chiropractic, and then you gravitated towards something called applied kinesiology. I've met your mentor, Bruce Shin, a few times. He's amazing. Um, can you tell me a little bit about that methodology?
It's a technique that is focused on, I would say, looking at the whole picture. So it's based on what they call the triad of health, so structure, chemical, and emotional.
So after you got well established with using the applied kinesiology technique, I went with you to the course of the Webster Technique,
Mhm,
which helps prenatal women.
mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what that technique is?
Webster is a technique that um, is specifically for prenatal care. It focuses on the alignment of the pelvis in order to create an optimal environment for the growing baby. It's also, in doing so, it helps the mother be as comfortable as possible during pregnancy, and in theory, will set them up for the smoothest, most comfortable labor and delivery.
So when you first went to this seminar, we were in Denver together, and we didn't have kids at the time.
Mm-hmm. And Mia.
But we had Mia. Oh yeah, we brought her.
She was only a few months.
So yeah, I remember I was in the room with her while you guys were taking the course. Um, was it having Mia that kind of spawned that interest in it?
Yeah. So with Mia, first pregnancy, I felt great. No aches and pains, other than like the initial morning sickness, which was awful. Other than that, it was a very smooth, pain-free, comfortable pregnancy. So I didn't really think much about needing chiropractic care, but I did continue with it just to make sure that I was in good alignment. So I felt great. And then we hit 40 weeks and I still didn't go into labor. I think it was finally 41 and a half weeks after some things were done to try to get things moving. Finally went into labor. I think we had first contraction was like 4 a.m. or something like that, early. But they were very far apart. So we went all day just kind of hanging out. And then by like 7:30, I think you called the doula and you're like, I don't think this is happening. So I got in the tub. She said to take a Benadryl and have half a glass of wine so I could get some sleep for tomorrow because that's probably when it was going to happen. So I got in the tub and then all of a sudden things started going. So then I think 8:30 we called her back and said, they're every 20 minutes. Was it 20 minutes? Maybe it was closer. And then we met them at the birth center. I want to say it was 9, something like that. It was dark. I think we were 7 centimeters. Contractions are like every 4 to 5 minutes. So things ramped up fast and then they just kind of stopped. So we were stuck at 8 centimeters from that point, and I was having contractions every 2 to 3 minutes, and then I was so exhausted, I remember I passed out in between, woke up, um, contraction, pass out, and then I just remember at some point the sun came up, and I was like, "Oh, this is not good." Um, so then they did all the things, they broke my water to get things moving, that didn't work, and then the new midwife came on, the one that I liked a lot, and she was doing everything she could, and then eventually she said, "I think it's time to go to the hospital." My blood pressure was starting to spike. I was exhausted, so she's like, "It's time. Let's go. Let's get you an epidural so you can rest. Otherwise, you'll have no energy to push." So we did that. I think we got to the hospital like 10 in the morning, 11. They did the epidural. They said we could wait. After a couple hours, nothing was happening. So then they induced me. That still wasn't really working. I remember it was like 5 p.m. The nurse said, "No, you're maybe at 8.5. You're still not ready." The doctor came in. I think he wanted to go home. So he said, "It's time to go." So we pushed. And I was like, "I will push this baby out." Did not work. We were pushing for like two and a
Long,
half hours.
long time.
Um, Finally got her out. She came out like this. And I think that's why it stalled. She wasn't in a good position. Um, and so at that point, I was like, I got to figure out how to help other moms not have to go through this. So then I decided, like, once I'm ready, I'm going to go to a Webster seminar because I had done it before, but I was like, this is what I want to do now. And so we went to the seminar, and then that was the path.
So as a mother at this point who's gone through a difficult pregnancy, labor, sorry, my terminology. Do you think that if you would have received that type of chiropractic care leading up to your pregnancy, could it have made it better? Again, nothing's ever certain, but do you think it could have helped?
I think so. I think it's a big factor. I think the other factor with the first time around was the fear. of the unknown. I think that also stalled things a little bit, but the second time around, yeah, it was just so much smoother. I think it was first contraction at like 4 in the morning, had him at 11, and it was like 5 minutes of pushing,
Yeah,
maybe?
that was Maverick. He was.
Uh,
I would agree that your delivery was a lot easier, but he's a lot more difficult in person now.
yes. It's always a flip flop.
Mia is
Difficult labor and delivery, but easy.
angel of a kid, kind of,
Yes.
and then the opposite.
Mhm.
So probably if you're helping a lot of women have easier labors,
Don't say that.
so what does having this experience, like you experiencing kind of both sides of the coin, and we did IVF, we've gone through those struggles. How does that allow you to connect with the women that you are treating nowadays?
Um, well, recently I've been treating a lot more women that have also gone through IVF. It's becoming a lot more common. Um, so I mean, there's always that deeper level of understanding because we had a similar journey. A lot of them a lot longer and more emotional journey than we had. We were pretty lucky. Um, but it's just so interesting when there's these doctors that are treating women that are pregnant that have never experienced it. So they don't really understand. So I think they feel that when they go to other practitioners.
Yeah, I think empathy is a huge thing, especially from obviously I know you and I've met a lot of your clients, and I feel that that's one of the biggest things is developing that bond and that trust because it is a very vulnerable time for them. Um, do you want to share a little bit about our IVF journey and how it's more? And you could talk about it, but also like again, all these experiences have made you who you are today. So, can you talk a little bit about the IVF journey and how that plays into just the empathy that you were showing towards these women?
Um, I never thought about that before, but I think we did have such a bad experience with the first doctor. I don't know if subconsciously I tried to overcorrect for that, um, and be the opposite. Um, because in that instance, our doctor was very, I don't know if cold's the right word, but just didn't really feel invested. Didn't really feel like he necessarily cared if we were successful as much as he wanted us to just keep throwing money into it. Um, like what? Yeah, I think it just feeling like they don't care and you're just a number and you're just
Yeah, we went. It didn't go well with the first doctor. We tried a few times and it failed. And
they wanted to just keep doing the same thing.
yeah, there was no real course correction. It was just, hey, just put more money in the machine. And keep,
Eventually it'll work.
yeah, and keep paying us. But we got referred to Dr. Kumar,
Mhm.
and tell me about.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing. I would send anyone there. I have sent multiple people there, and I think everybody that's gone and worked with him has been successful, because he really cares. You can tell the first time you meet him that his whole heart is in what he does. And I remember going into that appointment and being ready for this new doctor to just look at our chart and say, this just might not happen for you guys. But he looked at it and he said, I guarantee I can get you guys pregnant. And it was just like, oh my God. But yeah, and he did.
Yeah.
First time we had what? Was it 11 or 12 eggs, 8 embryos, and first transfer was Mia, and then second transfer was Maverick.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that time. You hit the nail on the head as far as people that care. He he looked through every single page of our chart, one by one with us and asked us questions. And they weren't just only technical questions. They were, um,
But he also pointed out exactly why he thought the other time was unsuccessful,
yeah,
because he said based on our history, we shouldn't have an issue.
right. He was a detective at the end of the day. He looked at every single thing. He talked to us from an emotional standpoint and um, where we were we ready? And that was a big thing for me during the first time around was because early on in the business, my thought is like, I need to keep the business running because we have to be able to afford this IVF stuff. And the truth of the matter was that I need to be there more for you. And so again, it's a journey as we kind of go through these things, and it does shape why we do what we do and why we care so much about our clients. So when it comes to a prenatal chiropractic appointment, what does that first experience or first session look like?
So first it's the history, find out what's going on with them, what they're coming in for, um, if they've been having any issues or if they're just coming in because they want to try to prevent anything from happening or they're just more worried about having the smoothest, easiest labor possible. Um, every session we do full spine. So I check the neck, the shoulders, the back, but the primary focus or the most important aspect is looking at the pelvis. So where the SI joints are and where they should be, and then also positioning of the sacrum, because all that puts tension on the uterus. And so I always say we're basically going from like a studio apartment to like a one-bedroom apartment for the baby, giving them more space, taking pressure off of the mom so that everyone's more comfortable and get in the best position possible. So that's the goal.
So these women that are coming to see you, what are some of the conditions that they're coming in with, like low back pain? What other things are they coming in?
A lot of neck and upper back pain, just because in pregnancy your belly's growing, so that puts a lot of pressure on your low back, but also you're growing up here, so that pulls the shoulders forward and the head drops forward. So a lot of times they're having a lot of tension into their neck and shoulders. Um, there's also like mom wrist or pregnancy wrist where they get like carpal tunnel type syndrome, um, sciatica. Um, that's usually most of it.
Do they ever again, not a lot of people even know chiropractic for pregnant women exists,
Right. Or that it's safe.
that it's safe. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about like the technique? Is it aggressive? Is it more on the gentle side?
Very, very gentle. No big major thrusting motions. For the most part, they're either laying on their back or on their stomach. We have a special table where their belly goes down into the opening, and it's the only time that women get to lay on their stomach when they're pregnant, so they love that. But very, very gentle. Um, but it makes a huge impact, and they feel so much better after. And the good thing is that recently, I'd say in the last year, a lot of their OBs are actually recommending chiro, which before was not the case.
Right.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think they're seeing the impact of what it can do and to alleviate some of their pain and symptoms.
Mhm.
Can you we've also had some women that are coming later in their labor process.
Yeah.
Um, can you give me an example of what's going on in those situations?
Those cases are generally when their babies are breech. So if they don't get the baby to flip, then they have to have a C-section, and that's what they're trying to avoid. Most of them are coming in, I would say 36 weeks on, which is very late. Um, generally we want baby to be head down by 34 weeks. And each week it gets more and more. difficult to get them to flip just because of size and space. But we have had success with a few women coming in 36, 37 weeks. I think even one at 38 weeks. Um, so it's possible. It just takes more effort and sometimes more visits.
So it's a lot more work.
Yeah.
And your sessions are typically how long?
Um, for those cases, definitely the hour. A lot of soft tissue needs to be done. In general, I like the hour with prenatal just so that we can cover everything and be very gentle. And then that helps the mom relax a little bit more.
Yeah.
So the hour is best, but I have had patients that have only done the half hour.
Mhm. But even that's longer than most other chiropractors that are treating. And I think that, yes, there's technical skill involved, but there's also that part of it where it's a high stress situation for a lot of these moms to be, and to be in an environment where their body can relax. That time allows that, in addition to being with someone like you that can talk to them in a certain way and to relate with them in a certain way, makes all the difference sometimes when it comes to these things. Um, can you think of, so along those lines, the women that are waiting till 36, 37 weeks when it's pretty late,
Yeah.
what would you say to a woman that is early on in the pregnancy and doesn't necessarily have any problems right now, but wants to keep her body ready throughout this entire process and to make it as seamless as possible? What would you say?
Well, it's always the sooner you come in before things are going wrong, the easier it is. So it's all just about prevention, keeping their body in optimal alignment so that issues don't arise.
Yeah, I think it's really much the well wellness care versus sick care.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we stress here of,
And a lot of times those women come in and they're like, "Oh, I feel fine." And then you work with them like, "Oh, I didn't realize I really needed this."
yeah. No, that's a very good point, because you don't know what you don't know. And there are, reg- whether it's pregnant women or anyone in life, it's, yeah, I'm fine. It is what it is. And they don't really realize that this tension that's going on in your body that may not manifest as an increased pain or something like that could be actually slowing them down in other ways. Okay, last parting thoughts. I know you want to get off this podcast as soon as possible, but any parting thoughts, or what ultimately drives you to be the clinician that you are today?
I think specifically when it comes to prenatal, it's just my goal is to help women avoid any unnecessary struggles or difficulties or discomfort during their pregnancy journey. Um, that's just where my heart is, and I just wanna help as many moms as possible so they don't have to go through what I went through.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's what drives me and why I wanna be in this world, this prenatal world. It's what brings me joy.
And me.
Sometimes.
Okay,
Most of the time,
most of the time. We're gonna
the other time.
we're gonna keep it real here. Yeah. Well, sometimes. Okay. Thank you, my love, honey, for being on the podcast, for sharing a little bit about what you do. And thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.
Hey, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification for our latest tips coming to you every week. Share this video with your family and friends. It might just make their day a little bit better. I'll see you soon.